We have this shared cultural assumption that getting to the top of any ladder requires a certain amount of, well, ruthlessness.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we are taught practically from birth that power is this cutthroat, zero-sum game. You watch movies about Wall Street or, I don't know, political thrillers, and the message is just hammered home.
Right. The idea that to be powerful, you have to be the shark in the tank.
Exactly. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes, step on whoever is in your way, and just guard your position fiercely.
It is a deeply ingrained narrative. I mean, we are so conditioned to associate influence with domination.
Yeah, we really are.
When you picture a powerful person, you usually think of, like, the loudest person in the room.
Yeah.
The most aggressive negotiator, or the boss who just leads by fear and intimidation. We completely mistake aggression for competence.
Well, what if the bullies are actually doing it wrong? What if the sharks are just entirely misunderstanding the water they swim in?
That is the million-dollar question.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we are dissecting Dacher Keltner's book, The Power Paradox, and our mission is to completely deconstruct the biological and social reality of influence.
It's a fascinating one.
We're going to explore the surprising science of why the nicest people actually win and uncover the tragic paradox of why they, well, almost always lose it all once they get to the top.
Yeah, and to set the stage here, we are not just talking about office politics or, strategies for getting a promotion.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. What Keltner's research demands is a fundamental rethinking of human neurobiology, sociology, and just how we connect with one another on a daily basis. I mean, the implications stretch from the boardroom straight to your living room.
So before we can even get into the paradox of power, we have to dismantle the centuries-old myth we've been sold about what power actually is.
We have to talk about Machiavelli.
We do. Niccolo Machiavelli, his 16th century book, The Prince, is essentially the textbook definition of power as force, fraud, and strategic violence.
Right, the literal origin of the idea that it is better to be feared than loved.
Exactly. We've internalized this idea that power is a weapon. It's like we've been treating power as a vault of gold.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like you hoard it, you lock it away, and you guard it with a sword to make sure nobody takes it from you.
Right, right.
But Keltner's research shows it's actually more like a Wi-Fi signal.
A Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah. It isn't a physical possession at all. It only exists as a dynamic force when it is actively connecting people. Like, if there's no connection, there's no signal.
That is the perfect visualization, because power is literally the medium through which we relate to one another.
Yeah.
Keltner defines it specifically as the capacity to make a difference in the world by stirring others in our social networks. And to really grasp this, he outlines 4 crucial distinctions that separate true power from, well, the things we usually confuse it with.
Okay, let's go through them. The first one is power versus status. I feel like we mix these up constantly.
Oh, all the time. I mean, power is your capacity to influence others and make a tangible difference. Status, on the other hand, is just the respect you enjoy from the people in your network.
So they aren't the same thing.
They often overlap, but not always. Like, you can have incredibly high status, maybe you are a respected elder or a really beloved local figure, but have relatively little actual power to change institutional rules.
That makes sense. The second distinction is power versus control. And I always think about a reclusive hermit living off the grid in the woods for this one.
Right, the ultimate control.
Yeah, that hermit has 100% control over their own life. They dictate what they eat, when they sleep, how they spend every single second of their day.
But because they are isolated, they have absolutely zero power over anyone else.
Exactly. Control is inward, but power is strictly outward.
Perfect. And the third distinction is power versus social class. Wealth, educational prestige, these are societal forms of power, sure, but they are not the interpersonal dynamic force of influence we are talking about here.
Right, because you could inherit millions of dollars and have immense social class.
But if you alienate everyone around you, you cannot mobilize a community to do anything. You have no real interpersonal power.
Okay, but it's the fourth distinction that is the absolute game changer. It is the golden rule of this whole framework.
It really is, and that rule is power is given, not grabbed.
Given, not grabbed.
Yes. This is where the Machiavellian myth completely falls apart in the face of observable data. Our power is not something we seize by force or deception. It is something other people actively grant to us.
And our enduring influence depends entirely on those people continuing to give it to us.
Precisely.
So if power is a gift granted by others rather than seized by force, What exactly makes a group decide to give someone that gift? Like, how does a person actually get the Wi-Fi password, so to speak?
Well, if you strip away all our cultural narratives and just observe pure behavior, a very clear universal pattern emerges. Keltner's team looked at environments where hierarchies had to be built from absolutely nothing.
And the research shows this pattern is identical across the board, which is wild.
Totally identical.
Whether scientists are observing troops of chimpanzees, or kindergartners on a playground settling disputes over toys, or even university students in a dorm, the result is the same.
The individuals who gain influence are the ones who show empathy.
Yes, the ones who solve problems for others and the ones who further the greater good of the group.
The leaderless group study perfectly illustrates this. So psychologists took groups of complete strangers and asked them to solve a highly complex problem together.
Okay.
But crucially, they didn't assign any roles. No one was put in charge. It was a total blank slate for power dynamics.
A completely level playing field.
And what emerged naturally was just fascinating. The people who rose to the top weren't the loudest dominators.
Right, they weren't the ones banging their fists on the table.
No, not at all. They weren't trying to force their ideas on everyone else. The natural leaders who emerged were the highly socially intelligent individual.
The ones focused on the group.
Exactly. They were the ones who offered their opinions constructively, who actively encouraged the quiet members to speak up, and who focused entirely on the success of the group as a whole.
And the group recognized that value and actively chose to give them power.
Yes. Keltner breaks this down into 4 daily mechanisms or practices that actually generate this influence. First is empathizing.
Just the raw ability to understand and share the feelings of another person.
Right. It builds immediate trust because people naturally gravitate toward those who truly, get their internal state.
Okay, what's the second one?
Second is giving, providing support, sharing resources, or honestly just giving your time. It is a clear signal to the group that you are focused on the collective good, not just your own survival.
And the third practice is expressing gratitude.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is about actively acknowledging the value of others. When you dignify someone else's contribution, it makes them feel seen and respected, which massively strengthens the social bonds between you and them.
And the fourth is storytelling, which is such an interesting one to me. Like, how does telling a story neurologically or sociologically bind a group together to generate influence?
Well, when you share narratives that convey shared values, you are essentially creating a common identity. You are outlining the us.
Oh, I see.
A compelling story aligns the internal narratives of all the individuals in the group, lowering their resistance and uniting them under a shared purpose. So the person who can articulate that shared story naturally becomes the focal point of the group's power.
Wait, hold on, though.
Yeah.
If climbing the ladder is just a matter of being empathetic, sharing your resources, and handing out gratitude, how do you explain corporate sharks and toxic politicians?
Right.
Because, I mean, the real world doesn't look like a utopian drum circle. We see terrible, ruthless people in positions of power every single day.
Yeah.
How does that fit into a model where power is a gift for good behavior?
That is the crucial question, and it brings us directly to the core thesis of Keltner's work. It is the terrifying psychological trap that gives the book its title.
The power paradox.
The power paradox. The paradox is that the very skills you use to acquire power are destroyed by the neurobiological experience of having it.
Wait, really? So getting power requires you to be good, but the physical act of having power alters you.
Yes. Having power triggers deep biological and psychological changes in a person. The feeling of being powerful literally makes us self-absorbed and impulsive.
Wow.
The data shows that in their worst moments, the powerful can behave like impulsive, out-of-control sociopaths.
What is actually happening in their brains to cause that kind of massive shift?
It comes down to a decrease in mirror neuron activity.
Okay, mirror neurons, those are the ones for empathy, right?
Exactly. Mirror neurons are the network in our brains responsible for simulating and understanding the emotions and physical states of others. When we feel powerful, that neurological system literally powers down.
That is wild. You actually lose the biological hardware for empathy.
You do. And this leads to a phenomenon called moral licensing.
Moral licensing.
Yeah, it's this subconscious loophole where doing something good or achieving a high status makes you feel entitled to do something bad.
Oh, like you've banked enough good karma, so now you can be a jerk.
Pretty much. Once someone feels they have earned their high position, they feel entitled to break the rules. They start telling themselves stories of their own superiority to justify their unethical actions, which naturally demeans everyone else around them.
The empirical data backing this up is just unforgettable. There's this psychological experiment Keltner uses called the E-test.
Oh, the E-test is fascinating.
Imagine I hand you a marker and ask you to draw the capital letter E on your forehead
Hmm.
so the other people can read it.
Right, so doing that requires a specific cognitive leap. You have to momentarily step outside of your own body, map the spatial awareness of someone standing across from you, and imagine how the world looks from their perspective.
So you have to draw the E backward from your own point of view. It takes a little bit of cognitive load.
But the study found that when researchers prime people to feel powerful by having them recall a time they dominated a situation, they are far more likely to draw the E so that it looks right to them.
Meaning it's completely backward to anyone looking at them.
Exactly. They are fundamentally unable to take an onlooker's perspective. Their brain refuses to do that extra work and defaults entirely to self-focus.
That is so telling. And the behavioral studies outside the lab mirrored this cognitive shift perfectly.
I really do.
Research shows that wealthy people shoplift more often than poor people. Powerful people are more likely to drive inconsiderately, to cut off pedestrians, to interrupt others in conversation.
To lie in negotiations.
Yeah. There was even a study where powerful people were more likely to steal sweets from a jar that was explicitly labeled for children.
I remember that one.
They just took the candy. Because the internal check that usually says, don't do this, it's wrong, was suppressed by the neurochemical feeling of power.
It's unbelievable, and if we pull back and look at the bigger picture, it explains this tragic cycle.
The ascent and the fall.
Right. A person rises through empathy and social intelligence. The group grants them power. Then the neurobiological experience of holding that power diminishes their mirror neurons and increases their impulsivity.
And then they begin to act selfishly.
Exactly, losing the very traits that earned them the power in the first place, which eventually leads to their downfall.
Okay, but let me challenge this with an extreme historical example.
Sure.
If power is given and enduring influence relies on people continuing to give it, how do we explain totalitarian regimes? How do we explain, say, the Nazi state? Surely the people weren't constantly willingly giving power to a regime committing mass atrocities.
That is a very valid point. And when dealing with extreme historical atrocities, Keltner's historical analysis argues that we have to look beyond just the individual psychology of the people at the top.
Okay.
The power of the Nazi state wasn't solely housed in a few evil individuals holding an entire nation hostage by pure force. Totalitarianism is a systemic phenomenon.
Meaning it's built into the structure of the society.
Yes. It is a hierarchy where the system is designed to reward ruthlessness at every single level, effectively weaponizing the power paradox across an entire nation.
So fear and coercion become the currency.
Fear, coercion, and complicity become the new currency for survival. It's a prime example of what happens when a system is designed to remove accountability entirely, allowing the worst effects of the power paradox to scale up and just run completely unchecked.
It becomes a societal disease rather than just a personal failing.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the collateral damage of all this. It's not just that power corrupts the people at the top, it's that the resulting power dynamics biologically destroy the people at the bottom.
The devastating price of powerlessness.
Right. We often frame powerlessness as just a social issue, like a feeling of frustration or a lack of agency.
But the research reveals it is actually a profound biological hazard.
Yes. Lacking influence over your own life hyperactivates your body's threat response.
Because from an evolutionary standpoint, if you have no power in a group, you are constantly vulnerable to predators or starvation.
So your brain recognizes this vulnerability and just floods your body with the stress hormone cortisol. You are constantly in fight or flight mode, even if there's no immediate physical danger, like, when you're just sitting at your desk dealing with the toxic boss.
And chronic cortisol exposure is incredibly destructive. I mean, the human body is just not meant to sustain that level of alarm.
It's literally wearing you down.
Keltner points to a massive long-term study involving 5,000 individuals. Researchers tracked their health outcomes over years and correlated them with their subjective sense of power and control in their workplaces and personal lives.
And the results were grim. Chronic stress from powerlessness doesn't just cause bad moods. The study showed it causes actual brain damage.
Yeah, it literally shrinks the hippocampus.
Which impairs memory and learning, and it leads to significantly higher rates of clinical depression, severe anxiety, and devastating cardiovascular issues.
This is why understanding the power paradox is so crucial. Powerlessness is a form of suffering with tangible, physical consequences that shorten lifespans.
This is exactly why you, the listener, should care. If you are a manager at a company, if you are a parent, if you are a partner in a relationship,
Really, any dynamic where you hold sway.
right, leaving the people around you languishing in powerlessness isn't just bad for office morale or family harmony. You are actively harming their physical health. If you are hoarding power, micromanaging every detail, and refusing to give your team agency, you are flooding their brains with cortisol.
It completely reframes leadership.
Yeah.
It moves it from a position of authority to a position of biological responsibility. You are the steward of your team's neurochemistry.
That is a heavy responsibility. But to really understand this whole concept, we can't just take Keltner's word as gospel. We have to look at the blind spots in the research, the academic critiques of the text, and then figure out how to practically apply the good parts to our own lives.
Definitely. Every sweeping psychological theory has its critics, and this framework is no exception.
So what are the main pushbacks?
There are three main counter-arguments to consider. First, there's the critique of overstated novelty. Reviewers have pointed out that the concept of soft power and the idea that power contains the seeds of its own destruction, well, it isn't entirely new.
Right, it's an ancient idea.
Exactly. You can trace these themes of hubris and the corrupting nature of authority all the way back to Sophocles and Shakespeare.
Yeah, Macbeth is basically a masterclass in how acquiring power triggers paranoia and impulsive violence. It's the power paradox in 5 acts.
Exactly. The second critique is what historians call the Machiavelli straw man.
Oh, interesting.
Keltner uses Machiavelli as the ultimate symbol of the old-school, ruthless view of power, but historians point out that Machiavelli's actual Renaissance peers were deeply shocked by the prince, too. They fancied themselves much more sophisticated.
Oh, so Machiavelli wasn't exactly the norm back then either.
Right.
The real power dynamics of the Renaissance involved complex diplomacy, religious influence, and marriage alliances, not just pure, unadulterated ruthlessness. So the old school view was likely a lot more nuanced than Keltner implies.
And the third critique focuses on the rigor of the evidence, right?
Yes. While the book is built on decades of laboratory research, some critics note that when Keltner applies these findings to massive historical events, he occasionally relies on sweeping generalizations that lack the hard empirical backing of his controlled lab studies.
Which is fair because human social dynamics are incredibly messy.
Very messy. Reducing complex geopolitical or systemic issues to a neat biological paradox can sometimes oversimplify the structural and economic realities at play.
But even with those critiques in mind, the practical application of this knowledge is massive.
Yeah.
To counteract the paradox, the research introduces two profiles you need to adopt: the observer and the empathetic leader.
Okay, break those down. The observer is the part of you that neutrally watches your own internal power dynamic, recognizing when you start acting entitled.
Yeah.
The empathetic leader is the part of you that takes action to correct it.
Nice.
And to put this into practice, Keltner lays out a 30-day power paradox challenge. The goal isn't just to be aware of the paradox, but to actively outsmart it through daily, deliberate action.
Vigilance is the key requirement here. Because the biological pull of power is so strong and the neurochemical shift towards self-absorption happens so automatically, you have to actively fight your own brain.
So the 30-day challenge involves 4 very specific, actionable steps. First, listen to your internal voice when you feel powerful. Notice the subtle shifts.
Like, are you starting to talk more than you listen?
Right. Are you interrupting people more often?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Second, dedicate 5 minutes every single day to actively imagine another person's perspective. Metaphorically, force your brain to do the E-test.
This step is crucial because it manually re-engages those mirror neurons that the feeling of power is actively trying to shut down.
Third, perform anonymous acts of kindness. Give away resources, time, or support without demanding any credit or recognition.
Which disrupts the entitlement loop because you aren't feeding your own status.
Exactly. And finally, share stories that connect you to the shared identity of your group rather than stories that elevate your own status or past victories.
By deliberately practicing empathy, giving, and storytelling, you are essentially constantly renewing the social contract that granted you power in the first place.
You are keeping the Wi-Fi signal strong by reinforcing the connection rather than hoarding the router.
I love that. It requires a massive shift in how we operate. It's about moving from a clenched fist to an open hand.
Power isn't a zero-sum game of domination where my win is inherently your loss. True. Enduring power is simply the capacity to make a positive difference in the world by empowering those around you.
It is a radical reframing of human hierarchy. But as we synthesize everything we've discussed today, from the neuroscience of empathy to the biological damage of cortisol, it leaves us with a rather challenging thought about our own role in all of this.
Well, let's hear it.
We've established that power is genuinely given, not grabbed.
The group empowers the individual. We also know, biologically, that the mere experience of holding that power will diminish a leader's empathy, decrease their mirror neuron activity, and increase their selfishness.
Right.
So this raises a deeply uncomfortable question. Are we, the people, constantly giving away our power to charismatic, enthusiastic leaders in our workplaces and our governments, partially responsible for the monsters we create?
Oh, wow.
By failing to build robust systems that hold them accountable once they reach the top, are we basically handing them a biological poison and then acting surprised when they get sick?
That is definitely something to chew on. If we give the gift of power, we have to demand the infrastructure of accountability to go with it, or we are setting everyone up to fail.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now go out there, remember the paradox, and build your power by giving it away.